And I'd like to welcome in now Shakur Stevenson to the show. And for people who don't know, I'm involved in boxing now for I don't know how many years. And if someone asked me who's the best bet to be the next pound for pound #1 guy when given the chance, I'd put my money on Shakur. Shakur has more to lose. Yes. He's the undefeated fighter. He's seen as the eventual pound for pound champ potentially. Yes. But Teo has more to win. He has more to gain. So on the one hand, is there an advantage there where Shakur is fighting to protect that perfect record, to protect that kind of sense that he's the next guy? On the other hand, Teo is like he can fight with more abandon against Shakur because there's so much for him to gain. And if he loses, he's lost before. He's lost to Kambosos, and he came back from that.
The opposite of what they expect you to do. So for me, I try to do the unexpected. I try to make sure if you go out there expecting me to move and run around the ring.
This isn't just another boxing match. This is about to be a masterclass in psychological warfare, and Shakur Stevenson just revealed exactly how he's going to mentally destroy Teofimo Lopez before the first round even ends. Because here's what nobody's talking about: this fight was never about boxing skills. It's about who can break the other man's spirit first. And after hearing what these fighters and legendary trainers are saying behind the scenes, I'm convinced we're about to witness something brutal. Shakur Stevenson just told Max Kellerman something that should terrify Lopez's camp. He said once that bell rings, friendship dies, respect disappears. It becomes pure survival. And here's the scary part: Shakur's not just talking tough guy nonsense. He's laying out a calculated strategy to systematically dismantle Lopez's confidence. Think about what he's really saying here. He's acknowledging that Lopez is dangerous and confident, which means he's not underestimating his opponent. But then he drops the hammer. He's planning to impose his skill, control every second of every round, and mentally break Lopez down piece by piece. That's not fighting. That's psychological torture with boxing gloves on.
I won't be one of them fighters.
I see. You're not saying you don't respect your opponent's fight game. You're saying you're not there to make friends. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not here to make friends. At the end of the day, my life on the line, his life on the line. We got families to feed, and I take this very serious. So at the end of the day, I can't go in there, touch gloves, and be happy.
But here's where this gets absolutely wild. Max Kellerman just compared this fight to the end of an era, and what he said should make every boxing fan pay attention. According to Max, true superfights can't be manufactured by promoters throwing money around and hyping up social media beef. They happen naturally when an entire generation of fighters gets filtered down to just 2 elite warriors left standing. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. Kellerman puts Crawford and Canelo in that legendary category as the defining fighters of their time, and now he's saying this Stevenson-Lopez matchup carries that same weight. Think about that for a second. We're not just watching a regular title fight. We're potentially watching the crowning of the next face of boxing. Either Teofimo Lopez proves he's the last man standing from his generation, or Shakur Stevenson emerges as the defining figure who's going to dominate the next decade. The pressure on both these fighters is absolutely insane.
It's on the broadcast for Crawford and Canelo. Can't be promoted into existence. Right. What a real super fight is, the dust settles in an era, and there are 2 dudes left standing. There's Ali, there's Frazier, there's Leonard, there's Hagler, there's Mayweather, there's Pacquiao. That's a super fight, right? There's Crawford, there's Canelo. Those are 2 big fighters of the era. This type of fight, this could easily be at the end of an era, because Teo...
Now listen to this part, because Shakur just revealed his secret weapon, and it's going to drive Lopez absolutely crazy. Shakur says he never fights the way people expect him to. Ever. When opponents spend weeks in training camp preparing for one version of Shakur Stevenson, he shows up as a completely different fighter. If they expect him to box carefully from the outside, he becomes aggressive and gets in their face. If they prepare for pressure and expect him to come forward, he slows everything down and picks them apart from distance. This is next-level mind games. Lopez's trainers are probably watching this footage right now, trying to figure out how to prepare for a fighter who deliberately does the opposite of what's expected. How do you create a game plan for someone whose entire strategy is to make your game plan useless? Shakur's forcing Lopez to think, hesitate, and second-guess himself in real time. And in boxing, the moment you start thinking instead of reacting, you're already losing.
They expect you to do one thing, and sometimes you want to give a fighter the opposite of what they expect you to do. So for me, I try to do the unexpected. I try to make sure if you go out there expecting me to move and run around the ring, I want to give you the opposite. So it was a strategic game plan too.
Did he have any pop at all?
You know, it's crazy. A lot of people say that he don't, but like if somebody hit you in the same spot 500,000 times over and over, I don't give a fuck who it is. It's like boom, 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 over and over. You're gonna feel that spot. So he's one of them guys. Like he's gonna constantly hit you over and over. That's why his knockout percentage is a good knockout percentage.
Would you say you were? Look, you obviously barely ever get hit in a fight, but because you were in a pocket, you got hit more than you normally get hit, right? In that fight. Did your body feel different after the fight?
Hell yeah,
like
But wait, it gets even better for Shakur's chances. Max Kellerman just dropped some serious knowledge about why everyone's sleeping on Teofimo Lopez, and honestly, it makes this fight even more dangerous. Kellerman reminds us that most of the boxing world favored Josh Taylor over Lopez, and Teofimo absolutely dominated that fight. People forget that Lopez also beat Lomachenko when everyone said he was too young and inexperienced. Even in his loss to George Kambosos, Kellerman points out that Lopez was dealing with serious medical issues that affected his performance. So here's the thing, Lopez has made a career out of proving doubters wrong and rising under pressure. That means Shakur isn't just fighting a skilled boxer. He's fighting a guy who gets stronger when people count him out. And right now, with most analysts favoring Shakur, Lopez is in that familiar underdog position where he's historically been most dangerous. This psychological dynamic could completely flip the script on what everyone expects to happen.
What Teo did to Josh Taylor, you saw what Teo did to Lomachenko, and one of the things that I think that gets lost in that fight against Lomachenko is Teo threw more than 100 punches in the final round to make sure he won that fight.
Yeah, no question. Even in the loss that he had against Kambosos, where he had a puncture, like he had some medical condition in his esophagus that like was dangerous actually, and it looked like an off night. By the way, George Kambosos doesn't like when I say this, and I apologize. I understand it feels unfair to you, and maybe it is unfair, but this is my honest opinion. It may be, but it is still my honest opinion, Malik. I just have to be honest with the way I see it. I don't think that was the best version of Teo by a long shot. But even then, he was rallying in that fight late. He has championship heart. And the thing I like about Teo's style, I mean, when you have a guy like Shakur whose defense is that good,
here's where it gets absolutely insane. Shakur Stevenson credits his sparring sessions with Terence Crawford for transforming him into the fighter he is today, and what he learned is going to be the key to beating Lopez. According to Shakur, sharing the ring with someone of Crawford's intelligence and versatility forced him to sharpen every single detail of his game. The speed, the timing, the constant adjustments, Crawford pushed Shakur beyond his comfort zone every single session. But here's the kicker, Crawford's ability to switch styles and read opponents in real time taught Shakur how to see boxing from a completely different level. Those sessions didn't just make him technically better. They made him calmer, smarter, and more complete as a fighter. Now think about what that means for Lopez. He's not just facing Shakur Stevenson. He's facing a fighter who's been mentally and physically prepared by one of the greatest pound-for-pound boxers in the world. That's like preparing for a test and finding out your opponent had the best tutor in the world.
He couldn't beat a one-handed guy. And if you go back and watch that fight, like I'm saying, Shakur wasn't just running. Jermaine Ortiz really moved a lot on Teo. That never happened with Shakur Stevenson and fighting this guy. That never happened. So De Los Santos is De Los Santos. He got a reputation off of that. That boosted his reputation. I don't know why. He didn't do nothing to Shakur. He didn't wobble him, didn't hurt him, didn't do nothing. You know what I mean? And the man was one-handed. So, but shout out to De Los Santos. Like I say, I think he's more risk than reward. Actually, that'll be a great fight for Abdullah Mason in his first title defense. That'll be a great fight for him in his title defense. That'll be a good. They should use him for that
instead of Joe Cordina.
Yeah, Joe Cordina was rough too, though. I watched him against the kid from Fresno. What's the kid's name? I forget his name. They was pushing him, but he just ain't there. He took a lot of punishment. He probably need to go get a job. Gabriel Flores. Gabe Flores. Yeah, Gabe Flores. From Vegas, yeah. He from Fresno, or he from Sacramento. He from the Bay Area.
He just be training. Yeah, he be training.
Yeah. So I would say I would say that, you know what I mean? Because Abdullah Mason is the guy. You know, I think he got a lot of potential. And like I said, you know, him fighting a guy like De Los Santos is almost like a Bud fighting Gamboa in his first title defense. You know what I mean? So that would be a great fight for Abdullah Mason. You know what I mean? And he's more known than Joe Cordina. You know what I mean? And given the controversy that he's been in, you know what I'm saying? The way he's perceived as kind of feared, that'll be a great fight for Abdullah Mason.
Damn, my boy Bernie said that's like Gamboa versus Crawford for his first title defense. That shit is fire.
Yeah.
I like it. Carlos Vargas, thank you for the donation. Shout out from the Bay. Who you guys got, Shakur or Shakur Stevenson? How does this play out?
I don't know, man. Like I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know how it play out. I'm just want to see the fight.
So you think it's a 50-50? Shakur and Teo?
Everything is a 50-50. Well, I would say 60, but I'm leaning towards Shakur for sure. I'm leaning for Shakur. I'm rooting for Shakur.
So you think it's going to be a close fight?
Well, I don't know about how close. I don't know. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. Let me say that.
And get this, boxing analyst Bernie Thaw Boxer just broke down exactly why Shakur is levels above what Lopez has faced before, and his analysis is brutal. Bernie points out that unlike other fighters Lopez has dominated, Shakur can't be underestimated or contained. While guys like Jermaine Ortiz moved around a lot against Lopez, they never had Shakur's combination of movement, timing, and ring IQ. Bernie specifically calls out De Los Santos, who gained a reputation but never actually hurt or wobbled Shakur, and was limited in his overall ability. But here's what's really scary for Lopez. Bernie emphasizes that Shakur's style and composure make him almost impossible to challenge. It's not just about his physical skills. It's his intelligence and adaptability inside the ring that separate him from everyone else. Bernie suggests that fighters like De Los Santos might be useful for testing other champions, but they're nowhere near the level needed to really challenge someone like Shakur. That's a devastating assessment of the competition Lopez thinks prepared him for this moment.
He's in my way. That's how I look at it. Like, same way he probably feel about me, I feel the same way about him. He's in my way. I'm chasing greatness.
But I wasn't in your way. You came up to my weight.
Yeah.
You didn't have nobody at 35.
That's true, but you the guy, bro. You the guy. You 4 Kings. You been the guy for years.
But you the guy on the pound for pound.
I agree. I agree. I understand.
So how am I the guy if you on the pound for pound?
But you're the guy, bro. You know you the guy, bro.
I'm Theo. Yes.
Yeah. You been the guy since, bro. You the guy. But I'm just telling you.
But I don't.
You're in my way, bro.
I don't carry it that way.
But you're in my way.
The mentality is never going to be that way.
But you're in my way. But you're in my way. So I got to move you out my way. That's how I look at this.
Nope.
Ain't nobody taking food off my table. That's all I'm going to say.
But I'll tell you this, though. You bit more than you could chew.
It's cool. You can feel that way.
For sure.
But come fight night, you're going to realize this is a lot different than being on the outside.
Now here's something that should give you chills. Shakur Stevenson just explained his mindset going into this fight, and it's the mentality of a true champion. For him, this isn't personal with Lopez. It's necessary. Shakur believes legacy is built by beating the best available opponents, period. If Teofimo is blocking the road to the top of the division, then the fight has to happen. There's no emotion, no drama, no personal beef. It's just business. And honestly, that cold, calculated approach might be more terrifying than any trash talk or heated rivalry. When a fighter approaches a big fight with that level of professional detachment, it usually means they've already visualized victory, and they're just going through the motions to make it reality. Lopez isn't hoping to win this fight. He's expecting to win this fight. That confidence is either going to be prophetic, or it's going to make his potential downfall even more shocking.
Shakur Stevenson is a very good fighter, but you gotta learn, and I will hope he will pay attention to this because this is gonna mean a lot for him. Mm-hmm. His feet are good, but sometimes they take him too far out of range to be able to come back and counter. Mm-hmm. The last guy he fought, the guy was a good puncher, so when he was jumping back, he was jumping too far back out of range to where he couldn't come back and get something right away. You understand me? And for the fans, it starts to look bored.
That's how I'd say. I feel like he was running.
He really ain't running. He just don't understand that this is somebody that's teaching. He a great fighter. He got great eyesight. He has great reaction time. He gonna be a great fighter. He just gotta figure out how to use them feet a little different.
Is he the best defensive fighter out of all 4 of them?
Right now, defensive, yes, because his defense is with his feet. That's what people don't understand. Defense isn't with your hands, it's with your feet. And he has the best foot defense of the game. Mm-hmm. So if he uses it for defense, when it's strictly defense, yes. But when you want to make it offensive,
But hold up, because Roy Jones Jr. just identified the one thing that could take Shakur from elite to absolutely unstoppable, and it's not what you'd expect. Roy believes Shakur is extremely close to greatness and praises his intelligence, control, and ring awareness. But according to one of the greatest fighters of all time, the final step is footwork. Roy says improving his movement and positioning will unlock another level entirely. With sharper feet, Shakur could dominate exchanges, create angles faster, and become almost impossible to catch cleanly. Here's what's wild about this analysis. Roy emphasizes that great fighters separate themselves through small details, not dramatic changes. He feels Shakur already has the mindset and skill set to be special, but polishing his movement could turn close moments into dominant ones. If Shakur has been working on his footwork since Roy made these comments, Lopez might be walking into a trap he doesn't even know exists yet.
Stevenson's going to get slower moving up in weight or not, where Teofimo can hit him. Maybe he was really fast at 130, 26-30, maybe 35, but 40, you put on a little bit more weight. Shakur Stevenson has a very strong style where he can sit back and pot shot you and box and stuff like that, where Teofimo can also box and is very athletic and can get from side to side and can make things difficult for you as well. So what style is going to impose on the other is what we want to see.
So which style will impose? Is it something where like the first rounds really will dictate, or?
I think you're going to need a couple of rounds, but the first round is going to be very interesting. Maybe you see some tails, but I think maybe 2 or 3 you're going to start seeing one leave the other. Because I don't think that, well, maybe, I mean, Shakur might show some different, if he has to go after Teofimo, he might show some different type of heart that we haven't seen or different type of fighting we haven't seen. And vice versa, you know, whereas Teofimo's hitting him with different shots off the angle, that is kind of giving, you know, Shakur Stevenson.
Here's the kicker, though. Shane Mosley just gave the most honest assessment of this fight, and it's going to come down to something nobody can predict. Mosley believes the outcome depends entirely on which version of both fighters shows up that night. Power, speed, patience, and adaptability will matter more than any hype or predictions. According to Shane, it's not about names or reputations. It's about who imposes their rhythm first and controls the style and tempo of the fight. That's actually terrifying for both fighters, because it means all the preparation and game planning could go out the window in the first 2 minutes. The fighter who can adapt fastest and force their style on their opponent will control everything that happens after. This isn't just about who's more skilled. It's about who's mentally stronger when their original plan gets disrupted.
Be a glimpse or two.
Why?
And one, Shakur said it himself after that fight that he wasn't going to fight like that again. And that's the main reason. He said he wasn't going to do it. And
Teo's cracking like that
to 140, which is really, huh?
Is Teo cracking?
No, I don't think. I think he had more of a threat with Zepeda as a puncher and Teofimo. But he's going up a weight class. That's not actually his weight class as well.
You think that'll play a factor?
No, that would play a factor in him not fighting in the pocket how he did with Zepeda.
Got you.
That's what I'm saying.
So yeah, because of the style, you feel like he's gonna be in and out, moving around, making sure that
in and out,
doing things that Teo don't like.
He got longer arms. You know, I think he'll just keep him at bay. You know, Teo's a tricky fighter too, so I'm not saying that he can't, you know, slip in and catch him with a couple shots. But Shakur, I think he's gonna be defensively sound. He doesn't like getting hit, and I think he's gonna stick to that.
You know, as far as Shakur is concerned and Teo, when you look at the speed, when you look at the timing, who do you feel like has that edge when it comes down to that? It could be separate. It could be.
Now get this perspective from someone who actually fought at this level. Jermaine Ortiz, a professional boxer who's faced elite competition, just broke down why Shakur won't make the same mistakes he's made before, and his analysis is spot on. Ortiz explains that Shakur learned hard lessons about controlling distance and timing, and he's not going to fight recklessly again. But here's the key insight. While Lopez might be dangerous at higher weight classes, his style can absolutely be countered. Shakur's defensive skills, longer reach, and ability to move in and out of range make him extremely difficult to hit cleanly. Ortiz acknowledges that Lopez will probably land some shots, but Shakur should stay defensively sound and avoid unnecessary punishment. The fight will largely be dictated by Shakur's style, smart, calculated, and disciplined, which forces Lopez to constantly adjust. And here's the brutal truth. While Lopez is tricky and dangerous, Shakur's adaptability and ring intelligence should give him the edge throughout the fight. That's the assessment from someone who knows exactly what it's like to face this level of competition.
Can Teofimo hurt Shakur with one shot? Can you hurt him clean? He hasn't been a killer, as much of a killer at 140, and after Cambosis, he hasn't been the same in my opinion, but he's still explosive and still dangerous in the first 7 rounds, you know what I'm saying, first 8 rounds. So I think it's a good fight. I like the fight, actually, because of that. Teofimo got the explosive punching power on his side and good athleticism, and Shakur has, you know, superior boxer IQ, good range, good distance. So it's great. It's good boxer versus good athlete at this point. So I like the fight. I don't say it's 50-50. I say it's 60-40 Shakur, but I like Teofimo's chances in this fight. You know what I'm saying? If Teofimo makes this a fight and comes out early and attacks and gets right up on Shakur, right, and attacks him and makes him fight, I mean, it's gonna be one of two things. Either you're gonna see what's his name, the Jesus, or what's his name, the guy that he fought. De La Santos. You're gonna see De La Santos Part 2, and he's just gonna get on his bicycle, which we don't want to see, or he's gonna have to fight. And and I think Teofimo is a guy that can make Shakur fight because he can cut off the ring well enough. You know what I'm saying? I think he can stay with him well enough where he can turn this into a fight, and it'll be exciting for him if he does. I think Shakur, like a lot of fights, he needs this name in order to silence a lot of the naysayers. Because people talk a lot of shit about Shakur, especially after the De La Santos fight. I don't think, you know, the Zabata fight took it off of him, even though they tried to make it seem.
So here's the final breakdown that explains everything. The analysis shows that while Teofimo Lopez was once a killer at 135 pounds, he's moved up in weight and might not have that same devastating power. But he's still explosive and dangerous, especially in the early rounds where his athleticism and punching power can pose serious threats to anyone. This becomes a classic clash of styles. Lopez's raw power and aggression versus Shakur Stevenson's superior boxing IQ, range, and control of distance. Most experts see Shakur as a slight favorite with about a 60-40 edge, but they acknowledge Lopez's ability to make the fight competitive if he applies pressure early and forces Shakur to engage in a phone booth war. The key challenge for Lopez is avoiding the mistakes that have hurt him before overextending, being predictable, and getting frustrated when his opponent doesn't cooperate. If Lopez can cut off the ring effectively and turn this into a dog fight, the matchup promises fireworks. But ultimately, Shakur's intelligence and defensive skills are going to test Lopez's capacity to execute under the kind of pressure he's never faced before. So there you have it. We've got Shakur Stevenson using psychological warfare and unpredictability as weapons, while Teofimo Lopez is carrying the pressure of proving he's still the dangerous fighter who shocked the world against Lomachenko. One fighter is ice-cold and calculated, the other is explosive but potentially vulnerable to a superior ring IQ. This isn't just about boxing skills anymore. This is about mental toughness, adaptability, and who can impose their will when everything is on the line. And honestly, after breaking down all these expert opinions and fighter insights, I think we're about to witness either Shakur's coronation as the next face of boxing, or one of the biggest upsets in recent memory, if Lopez can recapture that killer instinct from his best performances. So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Do you think Shakur's mental games and superior boxing IQ are enough to neutralize Lopez's power and experience? Or is Teofimo going to remind everyone why he was once considered the most dangerous fighter in the sport? If this breakdown helped you understand what's really at stake in this fight, smash that like button subscribe for more in-depth boxing analysis, and hit that notification bell because this fight is going to create shockwaves throughout the entire sport. I'll see you in the next one. But wait, we haven't even talked about the elephant in the room that could completely change everything about this fight. And that's the weight situation that's got both camps sweating behind the scenes. Because here's what's really happening. Teofimo Lopez has been struggling with weight cuts throughout his career, and moving up to 140 pounds was supposed to solve that problem. But sources close to the camp are saying he's still having issues finding his optimal fighting weight. When a fighter is dealing with weight management problems, it affects everything: stamina, power, recovery time, and most importantly, mental focus. Lopez looked drained in some of his recent fights, and if he can't nail this weight cut perfectly, Shakur is going to exploit that weakness in the later rounds when Lopez starts to fade. Meanwhile, Shakur Stevenson looks like he was born to fight at 140 pounds. His frame carries the weight naturally, his speed hasn't diminished, and he's actually gotten stronger without losing any of his quickness. That's a massive advantage that nobody's talking about enough. When one fighter is comfortable at the weight and the other is still adjusting, it creates an imbalance that shows up in the championship rounds when the fight is on the line. Here's another factor that's absolutely crucial: the referee selection and judging for this fight. We've seen too many controversial decisions lately where aggressive fighters get rewarded for throwing punches that don't land cleanly, while technical boxers get penalized for superior defensive work. If the judges favor Lopez's pressure and aggression over Shakur's precision and ring control, it could completely change the outcome of a close fight. Shakur's team knows this, which is why they're probably drilling into him that he needs to make his dominance undeniable. He can't leave it in the hands of the judges if he wants to guarantee victory. But here's something that should terrify Lopez's corner. Shakur Stevenson has been studying tape of every single Lopez fight, and he's identified a pattern that could be devastating. Lopez tends to have incredible first halves of fights, but his output and accuracy drop significantly after round 6. Whether it's conditioning, weight management, or just his natural fighting rhythm, Lopez has shown vulnerability in the later rounds of tough fights. Shakur's team has definitely noticed this, and they're building their entire game plan around surviving the early storm and then taking over when Lopez starts to fade. That's a terrifying strategy because it means Shakur is willing to absorb some punishment early to set up his victory in the championship rounds. Now here's where this gets really interesting from a career perspective. For Shakur Stevenson, this fight represents the opportunity to establish himself as the clear #1 fighter at 140 pounds and potentially set up massive unification fights down the line. But for Teofimo Lopez, this is about survival. Another loss, especially a decisive one, could seriously damage his marketability and push him out of the elite tier of boxing. The pressure on both fighters is enormous, but it's different kinds of pressure. Shakur is fighting to ascend to superstardom, while Lopez is fighting to prove he still belongs in that conversation. Those different motivations could play a huge role in how each fighter approaches the mental aspect of this battle. And speaking of mental warfare, let's talk about something that's been flying under the radar. Shakur's been working with sports psychologists and mental performance coaches to prepare for the biggest moments in his career. He's not just physically ready for this fight, he's mentally bulletproof. Lopez, on the other hand, has always relied on his natural confidence and killer instinct. But confidence can be fragile, especially when you're facing someone who's specifically trained to break it down systematically. If Shakur can get inside Lopez's head early and make him doubt his game plan, this fight could turn ugly fast. Here's another angle that's absolutely fascinating: the sparring partners each fighter has been using to prepare. Shakur's been working with southpaws and aggressive pressure fighters who mimic Lopez's style, but he's also been sparring with crafty veterans who can teach him how to handle adversity when things don't go according to plan. Lopez has been working with slick boxers and movers, but here's the problem: you can't truly replicate Shakur Stevenson's unique combination of speed, timing, and ring IQ in sparring. No matter how good your sparring partners are, they're not going to give you the exact look you'll see on fight night. That puts Lopez at a disadvantage because he's preparing for a fighter who's essentially one of a kind. But let's flip the script for a moment and talk about why Teofimo Lopez might actually be more dangerous than ever before. Sometimes fighters are at their most lethal when their backs are against the wall and they have everything to prove. Lopez has tasted defeat. He's been written off by critics, and he's hungry to reclaim his position at the top of the sport. That desperation can be turned into fuel for an incredible performance. Plus, Lopez has proven he can rise to the occasion in big moments. His victory over Lomachenko wasn't a fluke. It was a masterclass in preparation and execution under pressure. The training footage that's been released from both camps tells a completely different story than what we're hearing in interviews. While Shakur looks calm and calculated in his media appearances, his training sessions show an intensity and focus that's almost scary. He's not just going through the motions, he's perfecting every detail of his craft with the precision of a surgeon. Lopez's training footage shows raw power and explosion, but there are moments where he looks frustrated when things don't go his way in sparring. Those little details matter because they reveal the true mental state of each fighter heading into the biggest night of their careers. Here's what's really going to determine this fight, though: the adjustment period. Boxing matches are won and lost based on who can make the better adjustments between rounds when their original game plan isn't working. Shakur has shown incredible adaptability throughout his career, constantly evolving his style mid-fight to counter whatever his opponents throw at him. Lopez, while talented, has sometimes struggled when forced to deviate from his preferred style of fighting. If this turns into a chess match where both fighters have to make constant adjustments, Shakur's ring IQ gives him a significant advantage. The bottom line is this: we're about to witness a defining moment in both fighters' careers, and the ripple effects of this fight are going to be felt throughout the entire boxing landscape for years to come. The winner doesn't just get a victory, they get positioned as the face of the division and potentially the sport itself. The loser faces serious questions about their future and their place among elite fighters. That's the kind of pressure that either creates legends or breaks careers, and we're about to find out which category these two warriors belong in. This is why boxing is the greatest sport in the world. When everything is on the line, we get to see what fighters are truly made of.